if the numbers don't lie, if 85% of men are doing these emotionally driven acts, then who's more emotional? Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeanna.
And I'm Ivo.
Happy Friday, Ivo.
Happy Friday, Jeanna.
How you doing today?
I'm tired. I've had a long ass day.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah. But what else is fucking, right?
You know, I was going to say that, but I didn't want to, like, what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't want to, like, diminish your day and just be like, yeah, whatever.
I'm saying, it's like, nowadays, if you're not hustling, you're not doing shit. There's so many people out there, so many entrepreneurs that are like, have got multiple things going on at once. And it seems that like, that's like the norm now. I mean, I've been on that, like that vibe for a long time, where I've got multiple things going on. I'm working, long ass hours. But I guess back then it seemed like, I was doing something, but now there's just so many people doing like the same shit that it just doesn't really make much, like what I'm doing look like much.
Well, I don't co-sign that hustle culture shit, so we have totally different feelings on that.
I've been a hustler fucking since before these motherfucking kids out here were hustling.
Oh my God, you sounded like a real old man when you said that. I was a hustler before these little whippersnappers were out here doing this.
Back in the days when I used to hustle.
Okay, let's get into today's topic. So we are revisiting a episode that we did 2 weeks ago, and it was Don't Say This. So we are doing Don't Say This Part 2, where we go a little bit deeper into some other triggering topics or statements or sayings that people like to say in a relationship, or men like to say to women, or women like to say to men. But I think we're going to be focusing more so on things that men say to women. Just happens to be that
would you
that's kind of how the way it goes.
Do you think it's safe to say that that women are more triggered than men are?
No.
Okay.
I just you think it would be safe to say that men say more stupid shit?
Yeah.
Okay, so then maybe that's what it is.
I'm not gonna doubt that.
Maybe it's not the women that are triggered. Maybe it's the men that are triggering.
Well, I think that's debatable, and I think that we're gonna get into that.
All right, let's get this fucking party started. Right? So
didn't you read a book or something like that that like said something along the lines of like that you can only allow someone to take your happiness or something like that?
Correct.
Right. So if we were to really say, do men say stupid shit, or do women allow men to let those stupid things affect them?
Well, that would mean we would then have to take into account that that person was self-aware and that they understood that that was actually not happening to them. In a lot of cases, women and men are not really self-aware, so they're just perceiving it as the person is triggering them.
Okay.
That's, it's you have to be really in control of your overall self-awareness and emotion to be in that state of being, and that's actually not that easy because a lot of people just really do not have the time to dive into themselves like that. I was lucky enough to and the book was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson.
There you go. That's the one.
I actually want to reread that book. I lent it out for a while and I just got it back, and I think but I'm still reading Game of Thrones, so I'll get into that later. So the first thing that I want to jump into, a statement that men will like to say to women, and you actually have said this to me before.
Oh shit.
That men are more, let me start again. You said this to me before, and you don't have to say oh shit because it wasn't something, I don't think you've ever said it in the way that I feel like it's being said. So men like to say that women are more emotional.
Okay. So how have I said it?
There's been times that we've had discussions or disagreements where you have said to me that I'm being emotional. Okay. Which is not necessarily inaccurate. I don't think you've ever addressed me as being more emotional. You've addressed me as being emotional.
Okay. All right. So you're saying that men stating that women are emotional can be a trigger to women?
Yes. Now remember, it's men saying that women are more emotional.
Women are more emotional. Okay, I'm understanding the difference now.
Yeah.
More emotional than men, or more emotional, like in comparison to, what are they like? What are you saying that men are suggesting they're more emotional than?
I'm not the one suggesting it. It's men are.
Right, so
Men are the ones saying that women are more emotional. So let me ask you that question. Then what are men suggesting when they say that?
I mean, if I had to take a guess at it, right? Because it's nothing that I can really say that I've used in an argument or in a discussion, right? Where I'm like, oh, well, women are just more emotional. But if I had to take a stab at it, I would think that because women are nurturing by nature, right? They're just they're more in tune with their bodies. Things happen to them at a younger age. I feel like that even in communicating with each other, they are more understanding towards each other's feelings, and so they are more. I would like to say that one could argue women are more emotionally mature.
Okay.
So maybe men are saying it in a way where they're not realizing it. They're just calling them more emotionally experienced to be more emotional, because men are not taught to deal with their emotions. They're not taught to express their emotions. So they're not going to be able to understand what it's like for a woman to act the way that she does. It's just shoes that a man has never had the ability to walk in. Or, I'm not going to say all men, but a lot of men. So in comparison to how men are taught to deal with their emotions, yes, women are more emotional. What does that mean, really? Is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Maybe the way the men are saying it, it's just in a way where they're saying it because they don't know how to identify what it is that the women are actually doing. But, I think that there's room to debate that.
Well, that's why it's triggering, because men don't even understand what it is that they're experiencing, but they're putting a label on it because the only comparison that they have is the way that they are dealing with their emotions. So that is their baseline of what it is that they're saying. So men will say women are more emotional because I'm less emotional. And that's why it can be triggering, because that's saying that the way that I'm behaving in any experience that we may be having, either as a couple or just men and women experiencing each other, is that my behavior with my emotions is coming across somewhat irrational or unreasonable.
Okay.
Where in actuality, it's just me dealing with my emotions differently than the way a man deals with it.
But how do you know it's not, a man just stating that a woman, she's technically being more emotional?
No, she's just
right?
being emotional.
But in comparison to the man, she's being more emotional, right? Because a man is taught not to be emotional, not to show his emotions, to bury his emotions, right? So let's just say if a man had a deck of cards, right, and he had 5 cards in his hand, and each card represented an emotion that he was allowed to show. He may show one. He was told not to show the other 4, as to where if a woman had 4 cards, she's going to show all 4 of her cards in one way or another. So technically speaking, she's showing more emotion, so she's more emotional than the man is.
Again, you're not comparing two same things. So I think the only way that you can apply more is if, let's say you were comparing 2 women to each other and they both equally had 4 cards, and out of nowhere one of the women pulls out a 5th card. She is then more emotional because their baseline is equal.
But the term women are more emotional coming from a man,
he's basing it off of his experience.
But that comment is based on a comparison of women and men.
I understand that. But to say that a woman is more emotional because the man is less emotional, that doesn't make sense. I'm not more emotional because you're less emotional. I'm just emotional. That's it. How is it that I'm more than you because you're just choosing to exhibit less emotion? Do you get what I'm saying? I hear what you're saying. I can see how a man could see it like that.
Well, if you have more of something.
No, but we both have the. I guess what I'm trying to say, Ivo, is that men and women, yes, we are, for the most part, raised differently when it comes to how we are taught to express our emotions, right? Not to say that every man and every woman is like that, but for the most part, young men are taught to, buck up and fucking be a man and all that bullshit. And girls are allowed to cry and all this kind of shit, right? So I could see how a man would look at a woman and say, oh, she is going through it more. But in actuality, we have the same feelings for the most part. You and I have gone through things where we tend to feel the same way. It's just how we're choosing to exhibit the way that we feel. And because I may put out all my cards, why is it that I'm being more? Because you're choosing not to show as much. I'm just exhibiting what I have.
Yeah, I feel like that, that comment shouldn't be offensive, right? So I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a woman, right?
Yeah.
If a man called me more emotional, I would say, yes, I'm more emotionally experienced than you are. I have the ability to maneuver my way around my emotions more than you do. So, yes, I'm able to explore my emotions more than you are. I'm able to express my emotions more than you are. So I would see myself, and I just feel like that the word more emotional has been dubbed in a negative way. Mm-hmm. When it's purely perspective, right? Just how you look at it. If I had to take a look at it and I wanted to just take it as where those words don't offend me, I would see it in a different light. And I would say, you know what? Yeah, I am more emotional. I'm more emotionally in tune with myself than you are.
Yeah. I mean, that's a wonderful way to look at it.
It's poetic, right?
Yeah. I would say that, yeah, that's like in a perfect world. Again, you're circling back to people being more self-aware, people being able to feel like when someone says something like that to them, that they're going to flip it back on them and use it as an empowering statement to say, yeah, I actually am more emotional. But if you kind of want to argue apples to apples, right? I could then turn around and say that men are actually more emotional than women. Do you feel like that statement to be true?
No, I don't.
Why?
So, because.
So why is it that men couldn't be more emotional than women?
Because most men don't have the ability most men don't have the ability to explore their emotions the way women do. So
there's a lot of different emotions, right? Give me some examples of some emotions that people experience in life.
Anger, anxiety, happiness, depression, suspense. I mean, there's just a bucket full of emotions that someone can experience. So, jealousy.
When a woman is being more emotional, give me an example of an emotion that you think women tend to exhibit more than a man.
I can't say that I know one emotion.
Or just kind of.
I think that like, again, I haven't used that statement in an argument. So to say I even have a stance on it would be unfair for me to even to try to take a stab at what it is that you're saying.
Okay, so let's use you and I for example. We function differently emotionally, right? Mm-hmm. And that's very apparent in our relationship. How would you say that I act emotionally different from you? When it comes to maybe like a lot of things couples go through, disagreements, arguments, just maybe kind of the way we approach things that frustrate us.
Oh no, you have way more control over your emotions than I do in our relationship when it comes to things that frustrate us, right? But on the same side, on the flip side, I have more control over traumatic experiences than you do.
Really? Okay. So if we're going to use me as an example. So you just said that I have more control over my emotions when it comes to things that are frustrating.
Yeah, I got a great example after
Wait,
you. After you.
Okay, so you said that I have a really good handle on my emotions when it comes to things that are frustrating to me, right? Okay, and you have less. I would like to argue that men are more emotional than women because the one emotion that they really don't have control over is their anger. Men commit the most amount of domestic violence. Men commit the most amount of gun violence. Men commit the most amount of murders. Men are usually the ones, if I'm correct on this, based on history, that start wars.
Yeah.
So
we're dominant and competitive by nature.
Okay. So domestic violence is not about being dominant or being competitive. It's about not being able to manage your anger and your jealousy. So men are doing this from my statistics when it comes to like domestic violence or just violence in general. Men are committing it about 85% of the time. So how is it that women are more emotional than men when men can't even get a handle on these emotions?
One could argue that domestic violence does have a level of dominance in it.
Okay. So even if there is dominance, how come men can't control themselves? How come they can't control these emotions?
Well, we're not talking about all men here, are we?
No, we're not.
Okay.
But the men that are committing these things,
I can't speak. Listen, I can't.
Because since it's 85% of them, right, for the most part, and women are only doing this 15% of the time. Wouldn't that then, if what does Lil Wayne say? Numbers don't lie. So then, who's more emotional?
Like I said, there's many different situations that can arise, right? So you're singling out this one situation, and you want to use this one situation, right, as an argument to pose that men are more emotional than women.
But you started off by saying that women are generally more emotional because we're nurturing by nature. But there are many women that would argue that as well. Because I would argue that my mother was not nurturing by nature at all.
So I'm gonna go ahead and give you. I'm gonna acknowledge what it is that you're saying as having a significant amount of truth, right?
Yeah.
But again, you said that. Okay, so you're pointing out one thing about men, that shows that they're not able to control their emotions, and that makes them emotional in that sense. Okay. But going back to what I said in the beginning, I listed multiple things why women can be more emotional.
Yeah.
All right. And at a young age, they're just very in tune with who they are and their bodies and their feelings, and they're taught that at a young age that's okay. It's okay to express those things. When these things come up, they're nurtured, they're cared for, they're hugged, and at the same time, boys are not.
Well, then boys are taught other things. Boys are taught to, be strong. You know, boys, so they're taught different ways of exhibiting their emotions. So do you see what I'm trying to get at here, Ivo? Is that we're kind of on the same field for the most part. So that's why the statement "more" is triggering. Do you understand? You get
I see what you're saying. I mean, and you have a valid point. I'm not trying to tell you that you don't. You asked me to explain why this statement would be possibly true. Why would a man say this? And me being somebody who's never used this in a discussion or an argument, I try to give my best interpretation of what that might mean. I mean, I really don't. I don't know where that comes from.
What do you mean? What is?
I don't know where that where does that come from when a man says that to a woman? Women are more emotional. I don't. To have that point of view would be to say that I understand it, but I don't have that point of view, so I can't fully explain to you why a man would say that to a woman.
And that's why I led by saying that you have told me in those instances that I'm being emotional, and I understand what you mean when you say that, because maybe it may be a point where you and I are trying to have a conversation and we're trying to not have emotion in that conversation, and it just be us communicating to one another to get our point across, and kind of leave out some of the emotions that may make our conversation conflicting, so it's maybe I'm getting a little bit more angry or I'm a little bit more frustrated. You're asking me to not have those emotions at that moment, but you've not told me you're being more emotional right now. And this is why something that I don't think that you should say to your partner or your significant other, call it for what it is. Just say to your partner, hey, I'm noticing that you're going through something right now that I'm not really understanding what it is. Can you explain to me what it is that you're feeling and why? And I know that seems super rational and like in a perfect world, because when you're in a heated argument and you want to tell your fucking partner to the moon, Alice, I understand that. But what do you think are some ways that when someone is triggered by a statement that they can kind of not, I guess, feel triggered by it?
Well, I saw something the other day where a woman was trying to walk another woman through some of the traumas that she experienced in her relationship. And what she did was she was asking the woman, like, oh, so what went wrong with your relationship? And the woman said, oh, the guy was too much this, he was too much that. And she said, no. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to listen to me. And when I ask the question, I want you to give me an answer, and I want you to tell me what's the first thing that comes to mind. All right. And she asks him, she asks her, why did you break up? And when she said, like, she said something bad about him, I think she said something towards the lines like he used to call me fat, right? And she asked her, what's the first image that comes to your mind when you say that? And because she had her eyes closed, she was able to, like, the actual root of the first time that she experienced the negativity of those words came to mind. And what was happening was that every time her boyfriend said it to her, it triggered these emotions that were traumatic emotions. And she was blaming her boyfriend for making her feel that way, but in reality she had trauma within herself that she hadn't dealt with that was causing her to feel this anxiety and this anger and these emotions. So I think it's important that when you're in a situation where you feel triggered, to take a moment to, like, maybe close your eyes and try to reflect on why is it that you're triggered by that, and see what you can do to identify it, resolve it, and put it past you, so that moving forward, it's not as triggering. It's not as, because I think that when you don't deal with these things and you just kind of like keep them boxed up, when they surface, they kind of like, they stab you. You know, and you don't even know where it's coming from. You just get all this rage and this emotion. So at least being able to identify it, when next time you hear it, you know how to manage it a little bit better. You know where these emotions are coming from, and it doesn't blindside you like being triggered does in most cases.
Well, let's be clear. Her boyfriend saying to that is a fucking asshole move.
I mean, that was
I would be triggered by that regardless if I had trauma or not.
I don't remember the exact words, and I wish I
get what you're saying. I'm
doing the clip a disservice by explaining it that way, but it was something along those lines. And when she asked the woman, the first time, the woman gave her some BS answer. She was like, no. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to say it again. And when she closed her eyes, you could see what the effect of closing her eyes had. It enabled her to open up another sensory, which was her deep memory, and then those words, they activated this memory, and she was able to just pinpoint the root of where that pain actually came from.
Yeah. So
I think that's that can be very helpful to anybody that finds himself in a situation where they're being triggered by something that their spouse or somebody that they're in a relationship is saying to them.
I find it so ironic that you actually are using that as a point of reference for this conversation, because I have a book that I read every time I travel for work, and I travel for work today, and it's called The Way to Love by Anthony DeMello. And the chapter that I read today was about allowing yourself to give power to someone else's reality. So the example in the book was when someone says something either nice or mean to you, and you give that person the power of their reality, and then you apply it to yourself. So if I come to you and I say, you look really nice today, you immediately will allow that to affect you. And you will then feel like you look really good today, even though maybe you didn't have that thought process in your mind to begin with. And now my reality has become your reality. Versus you just saying, that's very, very nice of you to say, and you just move forward and not take on that statement to yourself and then let that define you. So in that instance of when her boyfriend was saying something really fucking shitty to her, whatever it was, she was allowing him to define her reality. So he had the power. So I could see why that could be triggering for someone, because you basically let them have your own power.
Well,
so when I think about when men say women are more emotional, I know why that would be triggering for me.
Why?
Because you're trying to tell me about myself. And I hate nothing more than someone to try to tell me how I'm feeling and how I'm in my own being when they don't really understand what's going on inside of me.
So here's the question that I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're all going to get triggered in our lives, time and time again.
Sure.
And I believe that triggers are defined by new experiences that are reflected onto to past experiences, so that we can determine whether the present experience is a good one or a bad one. So in your situation, when you're saying, I don't like people telling me how I should be feeling, you identify that as something that you don't like to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that at some point in your life, a situation like that happened to you for the first time, and you were able to identify that for the first time as something that you don't like. So what moment was that?
Oh, there are multiple moments, but if I had to narrow it down to one thing, it was probably one of my parents trying to tell me how to behave and how to feel when they weren't fucking parenting me to begin with. And I thought that they had a lot of audacity to be like, hey, I think you should behave or conduct yourself this way when I'm not here for you ever and supporting you ever. And I would look at that like, are you fucking kidding me? So when you have a man or a partner telling me something like that, and you've experienced that with me, I don't like that kind of shit.
So because
I'm just like, I was good all by myself.
So what I would say in this particular moment is that when I say those things to you,
mm-hmm.
Is it really me? Is it really you getting upset with me trying to tell you what to do, or is it you getting upset that me telling you what to do is stirring up and touching on these old feelings that you didn't like from when your parents would tell you what to do, right? And so I would like to say that in that moment, a way to be able to manage that is to identify, for example, let's just say we're in a situation and I'm telling you like, hey, you should be feeling like this or you should be feeling like that. When those emotions come up, to be able to say, I know what that is. That's from my parents. He's not my parent. I don't need to be feeling this way about him. That's something that's isolated from when I was a kid. And being able to identify that, I think that maybe it might make it easier to manage emotionally.
Yeah, and I will say that I firmly agree with you. That is something that I'm currently working on. I'm working on my inner child.
Yeah.
That is a process for me, because there are going to be many times in our relationship that things are going to pop up that I didn't even realize that were triggering. But these kind of statements to me are like ignorant. So they dig a little bit deeper than just something you say that is maybe somewhat upsetting to me.
Yeah.
And yes, I would agree with you that it definitely is tied to my past and past trauma, and that may be how it is for many other people. But I will say, I think it's definitely like a 60-40. Like 60% of it is about the past, but 40% of it is still about the fact that this person is saying something to you that is bullshit.
Right. But I think that being able to identify in the moment that, hey, Ivo's saying this to me and not my parents takes less of, like, makes it less of a sting.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
And so so that's why that's super important, right? If anybody's ever in a situation where they feel like they're getting super triggered by something that their partner or their spouse is saying to them, try to, dig a little deep and find out where that is. Where's that coming from? So that moving forward, anytime it shows up, you can like kind of separate the two and say, you know what? This situation currently in front of me is not the actual situation that makes me not like this situation. So let me separate those.
Yeah.
I still may not like the one that's in front of me, but I don't have to like it. I don't have to like not like it as much, because the real reason I don't like it is for something totally different.
Understood.
So yeah, that's my advice on that.
And I just want to end this part by saying that may not happen in the exact moment that interaction is happening.
No. That shit don't work like that.
Yeah,
we're talking about like moments later. When you have time to self-reflect.
It may be days later.
Yeah, whatever. Okay? Moments, days. But just I said this before, and I'll say this time and time again, and I'll never stop saying it. Self-reflection is the number one way to get to know yourself and to grow as a person.
So I want to give a piece of advice of how someone can self-reflect daily and how they can maybe tap into some of these things that are triggering to them to help them dig a little deeper.
Okay.
Journaling.
That's, yeah. I'm definitely guilty of not journaling anything
and
ever.
I used to think that journaling was stupid because I don't like writing. And then I found a way to journal that made it easier, and it was like compartmentalized for me in a way that it seemed more like digestible. And it's just, I answer 5 questions every day. And it's, so you have to do it in the morning and the night. So it starts off with asking me, if something was to go great today, what would it be? Right. So then I have to answer that. And then I have to give myself like an affirmation, like a statement of affirmation. Mm-hmm. And I've been probably writing the same one every day, which is comparison is the thief of joy, because I find myself a lot of times comparing myself to other people, other things, other places, other times in my life. And then you have to write one thing that you would like to achieve that day. So, and then at night you go in and you have to write 3 things that happened really great that day and 1 thing that you wished would have gone different. And I find myself so many times when it comes to the things that I wish would have gone different, that's where I find the most self-reflection. Because then I realize that I have attempted to set up my day in a way that I thought were super achievable, and then at the end of the day I'm like, wow, I really set myself up for failure. I really didn't even understand what I was putting in front of myself. Yeah. And that allows me to self-reflect on like what I did that day.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good way of knowing where you've emotionally been.
Yes.
So that you can know where you emotionally need to go.
And there's been many times I've journaled, like when we have had arguments, and I will write like, I wish we didn't have that argument. Why did we have it? And then like I'll make like a little note of like what it kind of was about. Mm-hmm. And there's been times where like when I go to journal the next day and we've obviously resolved the argument, I'll look back and I'll be like, fuck, that's interesting. So that's my recommendation. So let's move on to another thing that
that's triggering.
Don't say this shit. I think it's really fucking stupid when men like to say to their significant other that they look better with or without a particular item, whether it be makeup, clothing, or makeup or clothing, or just like commenting on like their overall appearance. So an example I would like to give is, because I've had this said to me before, I think you look better with your hair straight.
I'm thinking about a particular moment in our relationship where I made a comment like that.
Oh, what did you say?
Remember when we were on our like first date and I made a comment about your eyeshadow?
It was hair, makeup, or clothing. I just want to make sure I said all three of them. You made a comment about my eyeshadow, but it wasn't you telling me that you thought I looked better without it. You were just you were inquiring as to why I was wearing it.
Yeah, I was inquiring why you were wearing that color.
So, and you didn't understand, which I still want to pop your head off your fucking shoulders, but I gave you the benefit of the doubt, and you did a 180 right there at the table. Because just to give people some insight, Ivo, it was our second date. We were at a restaurant eating, and I had on like I don't know, maybe it was like kind of chilly out. So I had a black jacket on and I had it buttoned up, but I had on like blue eyeshadow, and Ivo was just like, I don't really get the blue eyeshadow. And then I unbuttoned my jacket and I had a shirt that matched the eyeshadow, and I was like, oh, I did it to match the
She's being nice. Like, I said it in a pretty rude way.
What did you? I don't remember.
I think I remember saying like, yeah, that I was like, I think I said like, your eyeshadow doesn't go with your outfit.
Yes.
Or something like that. Like,
and I remember just being like, oh shit.
And then Sheena was just like, really? And she just unzipped her coat and opened it up, and then you could see the whole ensemble, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna eat my food now and just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and I remember so I have like a little bit of a like a strategy when it comes to dating. 3 strikes, you're out. And that was strike 2.
Yeah, that was strike 2. The first strike was that I ate right off her plate within like the first date.
That's a whole nother story. Listen, differently, what I'm trying to say is that there are men that were, and I see this all over social media, men will like to say things like, she looks better without makeup, or she should put on some makeup, or she shouldn't be wearing that outfit, or maybe she should be wearing something more feminine, or she looks better with her hair straight, she looks better with her hair curly. Like, who the fuck are you to tell me how I should look better in your eyes?
But what if it's sincere?
Ivo, do you think that's how you would tell somebody something sincere?
No, not like that. I mean,
so then why would you even use that as
maybe that person doesn't know how to communicate what it is that they want to say, but they sincerely mean what they're saying.
Okay, great. Then feel my wrath. Because no.
Bug.
How dare you? If you are trying to express to your partner that you think that a piece of clothing and a product of makeup or a style of hair you feel like maybe doesn't suit them, I could understand that, because I would want my partner to tell me, hey, that's different. You know, I've never seen you wear your hair like that before. You may want to give your partner the opportunity to express to you why it is that they're doing it. Maybe they're trying something new. Maybe they're stepping out of their comfort zone, and they would be hoping that their partner would be real with them, but not be fucking rude. Because to me, to say that somebody looks better with something versus something else based on your perception, that's fucking rude.
Yeah, no, I get it. Totally unsolicited advice. Like, who the fuck asked you, right?
That is exactly what it is.
Keep your fucking opinions to yourself. Nobody asked you. So
leave my little taco alone.
Go eat a fucking taco and shut the fuck up.
But like, how would you feel if I said something like that to you?
You see, I'm just built different. I don't, like, I don't let shit like that get to me, right? Now, if you said it to me, right, because you know me, this is the type of person I am, right? If you said it to me because you know me, I may have some type of feelings about it, right? But if somebody that I really wasn't close to, that I didn't know, said something like that about me, I'd give 2 shits about what they say, because they don't know me. So their words have no truth. Like, your words are true to me, right? Because when you speak to me, you are speaking to me. Yeah. You know who I am. Yeah. Anybody else who doesn't know who I am, when they speak things to me that are negative based on what I look or what, or what I say, their words hold no value to me, because they're not speaking truth.
So I think one of the main differences, if we're going to talk about man versus woman in this aspect, is that women, I feel like, and tell me if you think what I'm saying is not valid, are held to a different societal standard when it comes to their appearance.
Yeah, I mean,
So
yeah,
when
absolutely.
a woman is then being told by a man how they should appear when we're already probably struggling with it already.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
But is it just from a man, or is it just from a man or woman? Like, does it really matter what sex it's coming from?
So I think in that dynamic, it's probably hurtful and triggering when it comes from the same sex too.
Yeah.
But I think we're looking at it in a kind of like a partnership dynamic. We're not looking at it like it's just some random stranger, even though random strangers will do that, because I was in the 8th grade when that boy told me that. And another model that I like to live by is the best revenge is success. And I made sure that, Jeanna was looking and doing the most for herself, so that years later when he saw me at a club somewhere, he was like, hey, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, what's your name again? We ain't got time for that. You have to understand, like, when it comes from the opposite sex, it feels different because you don't even know what it feels like to be a woman. So when it comes from a woman, yes, it can be just as triggering, but it may be perceived differently because it actually may have a different reasoning as to why the woman is saying it.
Okay, but the only thing that makes it hurt is if you believe it to be true. Because if you don't believe it to be true, then it's not real. For example, if I tell you that there's a boogeyman around the corner, if you believe it, then it's real, it's true, and you're scared. But if you don't believe it, you're unaffected by it, right? Because it's not true to you. So if you apply the same concept to any comment that's said to you, it only hurts if you actually believe it to be true. If it's somewhat real to you, if you make it real, then it'll affect you.
Yeah, I think that sounds really like.
Am I on my poetic shit again?
That sounds beautiful, Ivo. But what I'm going to tell you is this: for you to actually think that in that instance, let's say we're talking about a work dynamic, right? Where you're at work and you got to deal with these people every day.
Yeah.
Do you think that? Yes, let's say that the statement that this person says to you in that moment doesn't affect you, but then you have to deal with this person day in and day out. So it still indirectly affects you.
Well, I think that the fact that there's a negative relationship between you and another person, I think that should be more of that would be more of an effect than the actual words, right? To me that there would be an issue there.
Yeah.
Right. We obviously there's this we don't like each other for some reason, right? So there's that, but the words, like those are the things that I'm just not gonna like give any value to.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, what's that saying? Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
And
I get that.
Mind you, right? This is I'm saying this because I'm saying this from a point of view of a 180. I'm saying this because they used to affect me. I'm saying this because I did let those things get underneath my skin. And I'm saying this because I was able to like look back and realize one day that I'm kind of doing this to myself, and I actually have the power to say what will and what won't affect me to some degree, yeah. and I try to exercise that as much and as best as I can.
Ivo, you're just built different.
I led with that. I did.
But I know that's why I'm I'm following up with it. But what I think in the end, I think we're looking at this as a couple dynamic. So could you imagine, a woman getting dressed to go out with her significant other, when she walks downstairs, her husband says, "I don't like that lipstick. You look better without it." Right.
So now listen.
She may have went and spent all day, looked through 10 lipsticks and tried that one on and felt like it looked great on her, and she gets in front of her partner and her partner tells her that she looks better without it. could you understand how that could make someone feel?
Absolutely, 110%, right? And one has to go through that experience. I'm not saying that that's something that, initially at the first time you experience, you're able to brush off. But I know that you've been in situations like that where you've had a partner make negative comments about things that you're wearing. And in reality, there was no truth to that shit because all that shit looks great on you. Right? So
hell yeah.
So I think that now, right?
Young money.
Now, being that you've experienced that, if you were to ever be in that situation, right? Let's just say I said to you, like, that fucking red lipstick looks horrible on you. You know fucking damn well that shit looks good on you.
Yeah, I would tell you to kick rocks.
You tell you like, you something wrong with you, motherfucker. Like you would know that there's no truth to that.
I will say this, and I'm gonna steal your thing. I'm cut from a different cloth. Because even back then when my partner was telling me that, I was like, that's nice. Yeah. I made sure I bought that color and a couple other colors that look like that color just to piss him off because I be goddamn. And I'm going to tell you where that comes from. I grew up watching my father tell my mother, and he would say things like, women that wear too much makeup look like prostitutes. And I'd be like, guess I'm putting this black eyeshadow on. I'm going to look like a fucking prostitute then.
Time to go street walk.
Yeah, because that was this dumb, ignorant shit that men would say back then. But meanwhile, they'd be fucking chasing after those women in the club. Man, shut the fuck up. So I have one last thing, and then we're going to go to our cards. And we don't need to go back and forth on this one.
All right.
Men, do yourself a favor. Do not tell women that they should smile more. Or that they should smile. It's not their fucking job to walk into a room and bring joy to it with their smile for you. All right, let's move on to the cards. Okay.
Button that one up.
So remember, I'm going to go over them really quick. So the gray cards are for your past. The yellow cards are random. The green cards are life. The light blue are relationship. Red is intimacy, and purple is about you. So pick one.
I'm going green.
Okay.
Let's see what we got.
Life.
How do you like to be confronted when you feel down?
I just like to snuggle.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Like, I really just want you to come over and be like, you want to snuggle?
Yeah, something about like
body to body.
Body to body. Like, I think that in that moment, physical touch could be your like best love language in that moment.
Oh man, I think about one particular past experience with you when we had COVID, and the day I felt the worst. I was like so sad. I was crying that day. And I remember I asked you to get in bed with me because you still had COVID. And Ivo got in bed with me, and he laid with me, and I held his hand, and I fell asleep, and he held my hand the whole time, and his knee was up, and he just kept it. And I woke up and I looked at him, and I was like, sup with me all the time?
I mean, we were in lockdown. What else was I gonna do?
I know, but like I was feeling really down because like I just felt so fucking horrible. But yeah, I just like to cuddle, and an offering of any sort of chocolate item is always a good way to go about things.
Good answer.
I'm just gonna pick one. Okay, I'm gonna take
struggling over there.
All right. So this is a green one. Oh, but
green is life, right?
Oh, but this is gray. This is like a gray. So this is past. Who in your life or past do you owe an apology, and what for? Oh, shit.
Ooh. Who in my past do I owe an apology for?
No. Who in your life or past do you owe an apology, and what for? So it could be currently or in your past. And what do you owe them an apology, and what for?
Who in my past or life?
That's deep.
Yeah, that is kind of deep. Because I can't say that I've been carrying around. I mean, there's a couple girls I'd like to apologize to.
All right, so pick out one.
I'm not going to say nobody's name.
Okay, but So don't say the person's name, but what are you sorry for?
Just because there was a point in my life where I was, just a self-absorbed, insensitive fuckhead, and I did a lot of fucked up things that were very inconsiderate and were just all about the way that I felt and how I wanted to be treated, and
So you were walking around telling girls that they should smile more?
Yeah, that would be like saying it lightly. I just listen, I would like to apologize to them, because at the same time, those experiences made me, through my self-reflection, made me realize that that's not the way to be. And those experiences were why I stand 180 degrees from that person today. So I mean, for me in my life, those had to happen for me to be where I'm at today. I have to, like, I can point at that person and say, that's the guy I never want to be again. Unfortunately, it was at the expense of, the people that I was engaging with at that time, their feelings, and so to all of you, I say sorry.
Damn, all of you.
I say all of you because it was it was over a span of like a couple of years.
Eva out here committing emotional crimes. And I'm just fucking around. All right, so that brings us to the end of the episode. It's always great talking to you. Thank you for being here, even though I know you are tired.
Yeah, I had to slam a Red Bull.
So, ladies and gentlemen, until next week on Spark Talk Fridays, where we are creating conversations about life. Peace out.
Peace out.